Chapter 1. The Call to Arms. 6 months had passed since the end of the Galactic Games, and life had returned to a semblance of normalcy for Zephyr Quill and his team. They had spent the intervening time training, honing their skills, and preparing for whatever challenges the future might hold. But even as they went about their daily routines, the memory of their experiences at the Games lingered, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows of the galaxy. They knew that their work was far from over, that there would always be those who sought to upset the delicate balance of power that held the stars in check.
And so, when the call came, they were ready. It arrived in the form of an urgent message from Ambassador Zaranel, a plea for help that could not be ignored.
"Earth's finest," the message began, the ambassador's voice tight with tension. "The galaxy needs you once again." Zephyr and his team gathered around the view screen, their faces grim as they listened to Zaranel's words. She spoke of a new threat, a vast and powerful empire that had risen from the ashes of the Zorgon defeat to challenge the authority of the Galactic Council. "They call themselves the Dominion," Zaranel explained, her expression grave, "and they will stop at nothing to bend the galaxy to their will." The team exchanged glances, each knowing what the other was thinking. They had faced threats before, had stood against the darkness, and emerged victorious. But this was different, a challenge unlike any they had ever encountered. "The Council is assembling a coalition of worlds to stand against the Dominion," Zaranel continued, her voice growing more urgent with each passing moment. "And we need Earth's finest to lead the charge." Zephyr stepped forward, his eyes blazing with determination. "We're in," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "The Dominion will learn what it means to face the might of Earth." The others nodded their agreement, their faces set with the same steely resolve. They knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that they would be tested as never before. But they also knew that they could not turn their backs on the galaxy, not when so much was at stake. As they prepared to depart, gathering their gear and saying their goodbyes to loved ones, Zephyr couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. The Dominion was a powerful foe, and the odds were stacked against them. But he also knew that they had faced impossible odds before, had stood against the darkness, and emerged stronger for it. They were Earth's finest, the Galactic Defenders, and they would not rest until the galaxy was safe once more. As the Phoenix lifted off, its engines roaring with the promise of new battles and new challenges, Zephyr looked out at the stars, a fierce determination burning in his heart. The Dominion might be strong, but Earth's champions were stronger still. And so, as they set course for the front lines of the Galactic War, Zephyr knew that they would give everything they had, would fight to their last breath to defend the innocent and the powerless. The final frontier awaited, and Earth's finest would be there to meet it, to stand against the darkness and the chaos, and to forge a new future for the galaxy itself. The adventure was just beginning, and Zephyr Quill and his team were ready for whatever lay ahead. The Dominion had no idea what was coming their way, but they were about to find out the hard way. Earth's finest were on the case, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Chapter 2. The Heart of the Dominion. The Phoenix streaked through the void of space, its engines thrumming with power as it carried Earth's finest towards the heart of the Dominion's territory. They had received intelligence that the Empire's leaders were gathering on a heavily fortified world known as Nexus Prime, and they knew that this was their chance to strike a decisive blow against their foes. As they approached the planet, Zephyr and his team couldn't help but marvel at the sheer scale of the Dominion's defenses. Vast fleets of warships hung in orbit, their hulls bristling with weaponry, while legions of soldiers and war machines stood ready to defend the Empire's core. But the Phoenix was no ordinary vessel, and its crew no ordinary warriors. With Zara at the helm, the ship slipped past the Dominion's sensors, using a combination of stealth technology and daring flying to penetrate the planet's defenses. As they touched down on the surface of Nexus Prime, Zephyr and his team emerged from the Phoenix, their weapons at the ready. They knew that they were walking into the lion's den, that the Dominion's forces would stop at nothing to protect their leaders. But they also knew that they had no choice. If they could capture or eliminate the Dominion's high command, they could bring an end to the war and restore peace to the galaxy. As they made their way through the winding streets of the planet's capital city, Zephyr couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to hold a potential enemy, every corner a possible ambush. Suddenly, a group of Dominion soldiers emerged from a nearby building, their weapons trained on the Earth team. Zephyr and his companions dove for cover, returning fire with a hail of plasma bolts and energy blasts. The battle was fierce and brutal, with neither side giving an inch. But Earth's finest had the advantage of surprise and the benefit of their advanced technology, and slowly but surely they began to turn the tide. As the last of the Dominion soldiers fell, Zephyr and his team pressed on, their determination growing with each passing moment. They knew that they were close now, that the heart of the Dominion lay just ahead. And then they saw it, a vast, imposing structure that seemed to rise from the very bedrock of the planet itself. This was the Dominion's headquarters, the nerve center of their empire. Zephyr and his team exchanged glances, each knowing what the other was thinking. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. With a final, determined nod, they charged forward, their weapons blazing as they stormed the building's defenses. The Dominion's guards fought back with everything they had, but they were no match for the skill and courage of Earth's champions. As they burst into the heart of the command center, Zephyr and his team found themselves face to face with the Dominion's leaders, a group of powerful and ruthless individuals who had brought the galaxy to its knees. But even as they prepared to engage their foes in battle, Zephyr couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Dominion's leaders seemed too calm, too confident in the face of their apparent defeat. And then he saw it. A glowing, pulsing object that sat at the center of the room, an object that he recognized with a start. It was the Galactic Codex, the ancient artifact that held the key to the galaxy's fate. The Dominion's leaders smiled, a cruel and twisted expression that sent shivers down Zephyr's spine. They had played their trump card, and now the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The battle for the heart of the Dominion had only just begun, and Earth's finest would need all their skill and courage to emerge victorious. But Zephyr knew that they would not back down, not until the Codex was safe and the galaxy was free once more. Chapter 3. The Galactic Codex's Secret. Zephyr stared at the Galactic Codex, his mind racing as he tried to comprehend the full implications of its presence. How had the Dominion managed to acquire the artifact, and what did they intend to do with its power? The Dominion's leaders laughed, a harsh and grating sound that echoed through the chamber. "You fools!" the Supreme Commander spat, his eyes blazing with malice. "Did you really think we would let you take the Codex from us so easily?" Zephyr's team tensed, their weapons trained on the Dominion's leaders. But Zephyr held up a hand, his gaze never leaving the Codex. "What do you want with it?" he asked, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. The commander smiled, a cruel and twisted expression. "What do we want with it?" he repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. "We want what anyone with a shred of ambition wants: power. The power to reshape the galaxy in our image, to bend the very fabric of reality to our will." Zephyr shook his head, his eyes narrowing. The Codex is too dangerous, too unpredictable. It could tear the galaxy apart. But the commander merely laughed. "You lack vision, Zephyr Quill. With the Codex under our control, we will be unstoppable. We will rule the galaxy, and all who oppose us will be crushed beneath our heel." Suddenly, the Codex began to glow, its surface pulsing with an eerie, otherworldly light. Zephyr and his team watched in horror as tendrils of energy began to snake out from the artifact, wrapping themselves around the Dominion's leaders. The commander's laughter turned to screams of agony as the Codex's power consumed him, his body twisting and warping in ways that defied comprehension. One by one, the other leaders fell, their forms dissipating into clouds of shimmering particles. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the Codex's glow faded, leaving behind nothing but a faint, lingering sense of dread. Zephyr and his team approached the artifact cautiously, their weapons at the ready. But as they drew closer, Zephyr felt a strange sensation wash over him, a feeling of calm and clarity that he had never experienced before. He reached out to touch the Codex, his fingers brushing against its smooth, crystalline surface. And in that moment, he saw the truth. The Codex was not just a tool of power, but a living entity, a being of pure energy and consciousness that had existed since the dawn of time itself. It had watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations, had seen the birth and death of stars and galaxies, and it had chosen him, Zephyr Quill, to be its champion. Zephyr felt a rush of knowledge flood into his mind, a torrent of information and understanding that threatened to overwhelm him. He saw the true nature of the universe, the delicate balance of forces that held the cosmos together, and he saw the threat that the Dominion posed, not just to Earth and its allies, but to the very fabric of existence itself. He turned to his team, his eyes blazing with a new sense of purpose. "We have to stop them," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "The Dominion's ambitions go beyond mere conquest. They seek to unravel the very laws of reality, to remake the universe in their own twisted image." The others nodded, their faces grim with determination. They knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that they would face challenges and dangers beyond anything they had ever encountered before. But they also knew that they had no choice. The fate of the galaxy, of the universe itself, rested on their shoulders. And so, with the Galactic Codex in hand and a newfound sense of purpose in their hearts, Earth's finest set out to face their greatest challenge yet. The secrets of the artifact had been revealed, but the true battle was only just beginning. The Dominion would stop at nothing to reclaim the Codex and unleash its power upon the galaxy. But Zephyr and his team would be there to stop them, to stand against the darkness and the chaos, and to forge a new future for all of creation. The final frontier awaited, and Earth's champions would not rest until the universe was safe once more. Chapter 4: The Devourer's Return. With the Galactic Codex secure and the Dominion's leadership in disarray, Zephyr and his team thought they had gained the upper hand. However, their sense of victory was short-lived as an even greater threat emerged from the depths of space. The Devourers, the ancient enemy that had once ravaged the galaxy, had returned. The cosmic horrors had been drawn back by the Codex's power, sensing an opportunity to feed on the chaos and destruction that the Dominion had unleashed. As reports of the Devourers' attacks flooded in from across the galaxy, Earth's finest found themselves facing a crisis unlike any they had ever encountered before. The Dominion, desperate to maintain their grip on power, formed an uneasy alliance with the Devourers, hoping to use the monster's strength to crush any resistance. Zephyr and his team knew that they had to act fast. The combined might of the Dominion and the Devourers threatened to overwhelm the galaxy's defenses, plunging countless worlds into darkness and despair. But even as they struggled to formulate a plan, the Codex began to pulse with an urgent, insistent energy. Zephyr felt a sudden, overpowering compulsion to journey to the heart of the galaxy, to a place where the fabric of reality itself was thin and malleable. With no other options, Earth's finest set out on a desperate mission, battling through hordes of Dominion forces and Devourer monstrosities as they fought their way towards their destination. As they traveled deeper into the galaxy's core, the Codex's power grew stronger, guiding them towards a massive, pulsating nexus of energy that seemed to twist and warp the very space around it. Zephyr and his team approached the anomaly with caution, their weapons at the ready. But as they drew closer, the Codex began to glow with a blinding, radiant light, its surface etched with intricate, shifting patterns that seemed to dance and swirl before their eyes. Suddenly a voice echoed through their minds, a presence that was vast and ancient and unutterably alien. "Welcome, champions of Earth," it said, its tone resonating with power and wisdom. "You have been chosen to wield the Codex's power, to stand against the darkness that threatens to engulf the galaxy." Zephyr and his team exchanged glances, each of them feeling the weight of the responsibility that had been placed upon their shoulders. They knew that they were facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered before, a force of pure, primal hunger that would not rest until it had consumed everything in its path. But they also knew that they had no choice. The fate of the galaxy, of the universe itself, rested in their hands. With a final, determined nod, they stepped forward, allowing the Codex's energy to flow through them, infusing their bodies and minds with a power beyond anything they had ever imagined. As they emerged from the Nexus, they found themselves transformed, their abilities enhanced to superhuman levels. They could feel the Codex's presence within them, guiding their actions and sharpening their instincts. And they knew that they were ready to face the Devourers and the Dominion, to stand against the darkness and the chaos, and to forge a new future for the galaxy. The final frontier awaited, and Earth's finest would not rest until the universe was safe once more. The Devourer's return had plunged the galaxy into its darkest hour, but with the power of the Codex at their command, Zephyr and his team would light the way to a brighter tomorrow. The battle for the fate of the universe had begun, and Earth's champions would give everything they had to ensure that the light of hope and justice would never be extinguished. Chapter 5. The Battle for the Universe. Armed with the Galactic Codex's power, Zephyr and his team set out to face the Devourers and the Dominion head-on. They knew that the fate of the universe hung in the balance and that failure was not an option. As they reached the front lines of the battle, they were greeted by a scene of utter chaos and devastation. The Devourers' monstrous forms tore through the ranks of the Allied forces, their hunger for destruction seemingly insatiable. The Dominion's forces fought alongside the horrors, their advanced weaponry and ruthless tactics adding to the carnage. But Earth's finest did not falter. With the Codex's energy coursing through their veins, they charged into the fray, their enhanced abilities allowing them to match the Devourer's strength and speed. Zephyr led the charge, his body glowing with the Codex's radiant power. He moved like a force of nature, his strikes precise and devastating, cutting through the Devourer's ranks like a scythe through wheat. Kai and Dr. Gupta worked in tandem, their combined intellect and technological prowess enabling them to devise new strategies and weapons on the fly. They coordinated the Allied forces, directing them to strike at the enemy's weaknesses and exploit their vulnerabilities. Zara and Lara fought side by side, their skills as pilots and warriors never more needed than in this desperate hour. They weaved through the chaos of the battlefield, their ships a blur of speed and agility, striking at the Devourer's massive forms with pinpoint accuracy. But even with the Codex's power and their own formidable abilities, the tide of the battle seemed to be turning against them. The Devourers were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless, and the Dominion's forces fought with a fanatical determination born of desperation. As the hours turned into days, Zephyr and his team began to feel the toll of the constant fighting, their energy reserves running low and their spirits flagging. But they refused to give up, knowing that the fate of the universe depended on their success. In a moment of desperation, Zephyr reached out to the Codex, seeking guidance and strength. And in that moment, He felt a presence within the artifact, a consciousness that had been watching and waiting for countless eons. "You have fought bravely, champions of Earth," the presence said, its voice echoing through Zephyr's mind. "But the true test is yet to come. To defeat the Devourers and the Dominion, you must strike at the heart of their power." Zephyr's eyes widened in understanding. The Codex had shown him the way, revealing the location of the Devourers' central hive mind, the nexus from which they drew their strength. With renewed determination, Earth's finest fought their way through the enemy's ranks, carving a path towards the heart of the Devourer's domain. As they approached the nexus, the Codex's energy began to pulse and throb with an urgent intensity, drawing them onwards. And then they were there, standing before the pulsating, writhing mass of the Devourer's hive mind. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the cacophony of a million alien voices. Zephyr raised the Codex, its surface blazing with an incandescent light. He channeled its power, focusing it into a single, devastating blast that tore through the heart of the hive mind, shattering its cohesion and sending its component parts scattering into the void. With a final ear-splitting screech, the Devourer's presence vanished from the universe, their essence dissipating into nothingness. The Dominion's forces, bereft of their monstrous allies, quickly surrendered, their will to fight broken. And as the dust settled and the smoke cleared, Zephyr and his team stood tall amidst the ruins of the battlefield, the Galactic Codex held high in triumph. They had done it. They had saved the universe from the greatest threat it had ever faced. But even as they savored their victory, they knew that their work was far from over. The universe was vast and full of wonders and terrors alike, and there would always be new challenges to face and new frontiers to explore. But for now, they could rest, secure in the knowledge that they had made a difference. Earth's finest, the Galactic Defenders, had proven themselves as the champions of justice and hope, a shining beacon in the darkness of the cosmos. And as they set out into the stars once more, ready to face whatever lay ahead, they knew that they would never stop fighting for what was right. The universe might be a vast and dangerous place, but as long as Zephyr Quill and his team were there to guard it, there would always be hope. Always. Chapter 6. A New Dawn. The battle had been won, the Devourers and the Dominion defeated, but the cost had been high. The Allied forces had suffered tremendous losses, and the scars left upon the galaxy would take generations to heal. Zephyr and his team, exhausted but triumphant, returned to Earth as heroes, their names spoken with reverence and awe across the stars. But even as they basked in the glow of victory, they knew that their work was far from over. The Galactic Codex, the ancient artifact that had granted them the power to defeat their foes, had shown them a glimpse of the future, a vision of a universe united in peace and prosperity, a shining beacon of hope amidst the darkness of the cosmos. But to achieve that future, they would need more than just strength and courage. They would need wisdom, compassion, and the willingness to reach out to those who had once been their enemies. And so, Zephyr and his team set out on a new mission, a mission of diplomacy and understanding, seeking to forge bonds of friendship and cooperation between the diverse races and cultures of the galaxy. They traveled to worlds that had been ravaged by the Devourer's hunger, bringing aid and comfort to those who had suffered the most. They met with the leaders of the former Dominion worlds, listening to their grievances and working to find common ground. Slowly but surely, a new order began to take shape, a galactic alliance based on mutual respect and shared values, with Earth and its champions at its heart. As the months turned into years, Zephyr watched with pride as the vision he had seen in the Codex began to take form. The scars of war faded, replaced by the vibrant colors of life and growth. The once hostile races of the galaxy learned to live and work together, their differences becoming a source of strength rather than division. And at the center of it all stood Earth's finest, the Galactic Defenders, their legend growing with each passing day. They were more than just heroes now. They were symbols of hope and unity, living embodiments of the best that the universe had to offer. But even as they savored the fruits of their labors, Zephyr and his team never forgot the lessons they had learned. They knew that peace was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the forces of greed and ambition. And so they remained ever vigilant, ready to defend the hard-won gains of the Galactic Alliance against any who would seek to undo them. They trained new generations of heroes, passing on their skills and knowledge to those who would carry on their legacy. And whenever the darkness threatened to encroach once more, whenever the specter of war and chaos loomed on the horizon, Earth's finest were there, ready to stand against it with all the strength and courage of their convictions. For they knew, now more than ever, that the universe was a wondrous and precious thing, a tapestry woven from the dreams and hopes of countless beings, each one a glittering thread in the grand design. And as long as they had breath in their bodies and fire in their hearts, they would fight to protect that tapestry, to ensure that its beauty and diversity would endure for generations to come. The final frontier had been conquered, but the journey was far from over. As Zephyr and his team looked out across the stars, they knew that there would always be new horizons to explore, new challenges to face, and new wonders to discover. And they would face them together, united by the bonds of friendship and the unshakable conviction that no matter the odds, the forces of light and life would always triumph in the end. For they were Earth's finest, the Galactic Defenders, and their legend would endure as long as the stars themselves.